Just.
Hey, Leslie.
Alrighty.
And I did get a call. Then I saw
So just let me make sure that everybody remotely is on here too. Everybody can hear me. Ezekiel, Backer, you guys can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you'll kind of want to face the way you're facing so I can hear you just picks up from the mic there. So everybody, I want to introduce Levi Brooks of UseAll5. It's a very high-end digital agency. He's worked with Google, a bunch of other like major companies. Which ones?
Spotify, Twitter, a lot of ad agencies.
Yeah, so he does a lot of really high-end design, really understands what's going on the cutting edge, and he's kind of prepared a presentation for us today. Going to run through it, so.
Yeah, I'll start with it. It's not a long presentation.
Why don't you just get a view in full screen?
Actually, it's a longer presentation. I gave this last night at Startup UCLA, where I went to school. Joel and I have been friends for many years, I think close to 10 years now.
Yeah.
I think we're getting old now. It's kind of scary. I started my company around the same time that Joel started Coalition Technologies, and we focus more on the design, creative side, and I've always been jealous of how you guys are so good at the marketing, AdWords side of things. I'm always like, how'd you do that? And we've actually worked together on quite a few projects and thrown you guys clients, and you guys have thrown us clients. So we've collaborated a lot. The first part of this presentation was just going into my background. I went to UCLA Design. It's a really, really good program if you guys are ever looking for higher education or another design school to check out. They have an interesting mix of media arts and design, so you get a background from kind of like European designers and artists, as well as like developers and programmers as well. So you get kind of a mix in media. So that first part of the presentation was just giving a background on me, but the second part was kind of talking to Startup UCLA about some of the design trends and things that I'm seeing today. Do you guys all feel that design is getting kind of brought up to the, I guess, zeitgeist? Everybody's kind of talking about it right now. Is that how you guys are all feeling?
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, the reason why is, I think a big reason why is the phone. The iPhone was like kind of the catalyst for that entire conversation. Before that, design was important, but you got a lot of people that said designers are just doing pretty pictures all day or making a product look pretty at the end. And I think Steve Jobs really showed people that designers should work from the beginning with engineers and really collaborate with them. And one of my favorite slides from that 2007 presentation was this slide, which is, this is what we had, and this is what we're going to have now. Why do we have to have a fixed keyboard? Why can't we have something dynamic? Why can't we have something that's flexible to the user's needs? And obviously that required a lot of engineering work to get that glass to be touch-friendly, to work, and all that fun stuff. But it really opened people's eyes that design can change things and actually provide a lot of value. I mean, the phone itself, if you guys look at the revenue from Apple, I think it's single-handedly probably 60% of the revenue. It's insane. Mm-hmm. So even their Macs and laptops and all that stuff really aren't making that much money. The other big trend is the Internet of Things, and this is going to be really huge, is like as everything becomes digitized, whole user experience, the flow, the user interface, all those things have to be in sync, have to make sense, have to be very clear, and that's going to be a big thing, and I'll talk about Nest in a second. But you can see this is a really good slide. I don't know if anybody's familiar with John Maeda here, but he's a designer in residence at Kleiner Perkins, which is a big VC, and he put out a deck that is, if anybody's interested, and this is one of the slides from the deck, is why is design so popular in tech right now. And once again, the catalyst or the inflection point was mobile, but you can see how many startups were started by designers, and up until 2009, it was only 1 or 2 a year. Most of them were started by engineers like Sergey and those guys from Google, and then all of a sudden we got an explosion after the phone came out and how important it was to have designers thinking about the interactions in the app and how it looks and the competition in the App Store and all these different things. So I think my favorite startup started by designers would probably be the Airbnb guys. All went to RISD, which is the Rhode Island School of Design. And so they're really good. I think they've done a great job with the Airbnb brand, even though the brand mark looks kind of weird. But I do think the product is really, really good, and they've done a great job with it. The other thing about design is just there's so many different touch points now, right? I mean, we have the click and the mouse, we have phone and the touch devices, but then also the watch is a very, I don't know if anybody has the Apple Watch here.
Aaron.
Have you used do you use the speaking piece much, or it's pretty much the main interface that you're using, or no? Like yeah. And I heard that's like kind of the next wave is definitely, you know, more speaking to your devices, but how do you know you're speaking the right thing? How do you know you're interacting with it in the correct way? So having those interactions and showing you if you're doing it correctly. Also, there's so many opportunities in every space. I think, you know, before Instagram, people said maybe photography was already a space that has already been conquered by Flickr and others, but I think all three of these apps show you what design can do and how, if you think differently, they can solve different problems. So you got Instagram that people wanted to shoot better photos on their phones. You have Snapchat wanted to shoot photos that maybe disappear, they don't want anymore, and then maybe Pinterest is you want to collect and harvest those photos. So design can take a category like photography and really think differently on how do you kind of attack that. So at our studio, I mean, we have developers and designers, and we really try hard to get them to work together. This is kind of the process we follow. We say the understanding phase, which is really trying to, you know, talk. You guys probably do it here. Talk to the client, understand the business model, understand their issues. Are they even attacking the right issue, which I find is half the time the problem with clients. They're not even really realizing they're attacking the right problem. We ideate around that, and then our designers and developers, if we have the time, try to prototype as much options as possible to show the client, maybe even evaluate it with a real customer, and then build it out at the end of the day. So we go through that circle in the middle quite a bit, where we may go to evaluation and realize that was the wrong solution and kind of start back over. But as I said, you guys feel the same pain as we do. There's client timelines, there's, you know, client opinions that may not be the right ones, but they're the ones paying the bills, so sometimes we have to listen to them. And we feel that pain too at the end of the day. So getting back to Nest, I think they follow that process, and this process isn't new. I think if you know IDEO or Google or these guys all follow a very similar design research and development process. Google Glass was done the same way. Nest did the same thing, was looking at what we had already in front of us. They were really good observers. They understood there was a problem here. This is a horrible device. I hate controlling that. I mean, just even the up and down arrow looks like a good design solution, but it's actually pretty painful to control even. And they said, we're in 2010 and we don't have a good option for this, and they kind of rethought it from the ground up. So turning that is an easier way to think about it. Changing the colors that show you that you're actually going to heat the house or you're cooling the house. There's some small issues with it, but for the most part, it was a really inventive idea that nobody had thought about. And that's what we say about design, is like probably solving the problems that your clients didn't know they had, and then hopefully developing some value for them at the end of the day. They also did a great job of using the technology we had at hand to have an app to kind of show you at all times what's going on in your house, how things are cooling or heating, and then definitely using machine learning to kind of figure out your behaviors, and that's a huge trend coming up. You'll see a lot of apps doing that, and I'll talk about that in a second. So this is a really good graph. I think this is the hard part about design, right? Like, people say these buzzwords all the time, but there's so many different facets of how design comes together. And you have the content, and you have the information architecture and how it's laid out on the page. You have how it interacts and how it responds to you. And the visual design, which is like how it actually looks with the UI design. And the experience is how it all comes together. And I think the best kind of example of this all kind of coming together is, I think Uber does a great job with this. Uber has a really, really solid user experience. And I was kind of telling the startup UCLA kids last night was try to have one really easy action and then reward that user with a big kind of surprise. So you press one button and then all of a sudden a driver comes to pick you up. Mm-hmm. And without mobile and without all the technology that's built on the mobile phone, we couldn't have made that magic happen until recently. So mobile, I think that's where you're seeing so much design stuff happen, is now we're having all these variables and things that we can play with at our exposure. So, and then it's such an easy movement from like picking you up, you just put an address, it drives you, you don't even have to talk to the person, and then it's automatically charged to your card and you don't have to say anything. So it's a pretty smoothless user experience, and that what we're always trying to talk to our clients about is how to limit that friction as much as possible. I think the Apple Watch is an interesting device. I think they made some mistakes with it, but I just wanted to put this screen up as just showing you like even visual design and user information and information hierarchy, how important it is, and how much stuff they have to kind of think through when they do typography. Like the Apple Watch here on the left, that might even be too much information. You really need to know the high and low for the day. maybe just the general, like, it's going to be hot, wear shorts. I think we might even be smarter, but they do a great job with typography usually, and I think it just shows you how design has become really important because we have so many different screens that have to fit so many different facets. And then once again, and how that interaction and plays between the phone, the watch, and all the other wearables and information, Internet of Home stuff that's coming. So it's going to be kind of an exciting time. A big thing that I tell people, what I was telling to start up UCLA people, is if they're having trouble with design or they want a kind of a leg up with their startups in particular, Google and Apple have released what they call, I don't want to say frameworks, but languages. So they have the material design. If you have Android, you've probably seen the material design. They're giving this away for free. You can use it in your app. You can like kind of rebrand it to fit your brand. But I tell a lot of people, and since we've done a few projects where Google has actually made us use material design, it's actually a pretty elegant system. Really smart ways of doing things, really clean design, and just tools to get you going, and that you don't have to think about how to do a button, how to style things, or how to tackle things. They don't really release a framework per se, but what we found is like we use Angular for the front end stuff, and that's just a JavaScript framework. And there's Angular material design frameworks that you just literally slap on, and your project looks better because of these assets they're giving away essentially, and rules essentially that they're giving away. So, and then they have a whole. If you go to design.google.com, they give away the whole like rule book of what they're following, even down to like the animation styles and stuff like that. Some of it may be a little too over the top, but I think they've done a really good job with that. And then you have the iOS has a framework you can follow out of the box too if you want to. And they've done some good lessons, but there's things in here that always that start to confuse me a little bit. Like some things don't really look like buttons to me on iOS, even though I'm a big Apple iOS fan. But like delete all things looks a little weird right there. It looks like another menu item and doesn't really look like a button. So some people argue that Apple's is always better than Google's, but I think Google's really done a good job lately of kind of getting a leg up on Apple when it comes to design. So. I say that these are really good frameworks to start with, especially the startup kids, because it allows you to prototype quicker. And that's kind of the key to a lot of things nowadays is like, especially with our clients, how can we prototype an idea that we believe in faster, show it to our clients, hopefully sell it through, and then move on. And I know it's hard. I mean, I talk to our team all the time that we have a million things going on. It's hard to prototype, but prototyping is hands down the best thing to get your idea across to a client and showing them what you really want to achieve with at the end of the day. And Google did that with Glass and was able to get it to market in 3 years. So they started with something this ugly, refined it, worked with software designers to get this something out really fast. So before they even had the screen figured out and what this thing would look like if you look through it, they had designers already hypothetically putting together kind of what this world could possibly be if Google Glass came to life. So that's always a really good thing if you have designers and engineers are busy with something, but they want to like sell something to engineers or want to like rethink something. We always tell our designers to just comp it up, like figure it out. And there's a lot of prototyping tools out there that designers can use. They don't have to know how to code, and really figure out something cool to show the designers and clients and whoever's involved in order to get kind of your idea across. The future design, you're seeing a lot of mobile, but what I kind of mentioned with the Uber thing was design that anticipates kind of what's coming up. And we have so much data now coming through that apps can be smart enough to help you make some of your decisions. We're getting so many, I think this graphic's from the New York Times on our article on decision fatigue, but we have so many decisions we need to make nowadays because of the kind of culture and advancement we've made in technology that we need apps almost now to tell us what to do in a sense, or at least give us options on what to do that have streamlined it. Google Now is a really great example of that. They've done a good job with it. I've had some mixed results with it, but for the most part, especially traveling, it's telling me when to leave for a meeting or for the airport and knows the traffic already, and that's great information that I don't have to think about or do. So another one that I just discovered this week when I was putting this together presentation, I thought it was brilliant, was Digit, which looks at your spending behavior. And then kind of sometimes I think it slyly moves money over. I don't know if anybody's used Digit here, but I think it moves money over based on your spending behavior and saves you money, or even asks you, hey, it's looking like a good time to save some money, so you don't have to think about that. And then kind of plays with
Mint. Yeah, I saw you mention that earlier.
So it's kind of like Mint a little bit, and in the same way, but they've kind of figured out looking at your spending behavior as ways to kind of subvertly do that. And then actually that's another design trend right in there is the app speaking to you as a human. You'll see a lot of apps coming out or sites that will be more human dialogue, especially with machine learning happening. So how do you communicate with, the interface could be more like a chat, which is more useful to people at the end of the day. So hopefully that gives you guys some ideas of what we're thinking about over down in Marina Del Rey. But yeah, I think it's always fun to stop by and talk to other companies and see what you guys are up to. So that's it for the presentation. But if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to stick around and answer anything.
Yeah, thank you. I'll escape out of this, and please move out of remote people asking questions. But go ahead, if you guys have any questions for Levi, feel free to ask. I have a question for you. So we do a lot of like design and then the development phase. We kind of start off. It's a little more segmented maybe than what you've done. Maybe you can talk to us about how you do some of the design phase and what you're talking to with your clients now. So what we're doing is we'll start off with like a kickoff meeting. We'll gather all the information. Then we do some designs. We go back and forth with the client. But a lot of times we haven't had as much developer involvement as maybe we'd like. And then once it's signed off on, we hand all these files to the developer, and the developer just goes to work.
Yeah, and so we'll do that time to time depending on the client, the speed of the client, the project, and the nature of the projects. Our projects, range from more marketing work to more product design and development. So the product design development stuff is really important for the designers and developers to speak early on and work on the projects, the problems together. We have gone back and forth about wireframing. Google as a client has really pushed us to prototype early and often. So that's been kind of in our nature, and we'll see a lot of things. But it is a fine balance. I think developers, having them in early and knowing what the problems are that the designers are trying to tackle is important, even if they're not contributing yet. But I've always seen that if the developers can see what's on the horizon, they can actually give really good advice to the designers, and even look over their shoulders. I have developers now that are pretty trained to call out our designers on some of the bullshit. So they'll be like, that doesn't make any sense at all, like what you just designed. So, and it's good to have that coming right from the developers and working really close together. So. But it is hard to find the time to get them involved because the developers may be working on other projects too. And the designers are free of time, so they can start doing some stuff. But it's always good to, I think, just constantly share, maybe at the end of the day, what the designers are working on, thinking about a project, and before maybe getting the developers involved. So at least they know what's coming up and they can start thinking about how to attack it a little bit. Yeah.
So you guys design like products and what else do you use?
Mostly the work is in the web world. We've done apps before as well. We're doing 2 apps right now. I would say the nature of the work is web-based, and the most people talent is in web. But I tell a lot of people, if you know how to design for web because of responsiveness, you can most likely design for apps. And we've done that, over and over again. You have guidelines from Apple on how certain user experiences should be. So it's not a mystery, I think, on some of those things. But the hard part is the development side for some of those. But I was talking to some of the startup UCLA guys that have prototyped a lot of iOS apps last night. I don't know if you guys have done any iOS, but I guess Swift makes it a lot easier now. Swift is a new language that Apple came out with iOS 8. So instead of like super serious C++ or whatever it was before, now it's a lot easier to code it. So that was exciting. I was seeing apps like these kids were doing, and I was like, wow, that looks like Vine, or that looks like stuff. I was like, how'd you do that? They're like, this was easy. And I was like, so showing you that hopefully app development gets as easy as web development, hopefully sooner than later. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity in Apple.
Nice, yeah. No, that's a great point. There's new tools coming out. I'm using Laravel on PHP, which is something we don't do in-house yet, but even moving beyond PHP to other languages, as Levi mentioned, Swift, and these other languages are coming out. These are things we want to be looking at. There's going to be a lot of opportunities there with these new tools. Jordan has a question. It says, from the perspective of an agency, what elements of your work do you weigh as being more important in winning new business? Design, UX, concept, or technical proficiency, and why?
That's a tough one. I think collaboration between all those is the key, and we've gotten better at that over the years. We for a long time we would really have strong separation between design and development. to the point where the developers had no idea what the hell this project is, and all of a sudden one day we would just show up and be like, "You're gonna code this." And I think it's really important to have. That's been kind of the goal for us, is to get them involved sooner. And I know we have developers that aren't in office either, so we try to have them on chat like this and talk to them about what's going on with the clients and projects coming up. So let them see comms, put them in. We use Slack at our office as like just a way to visually upload files and stuff like that. So it's a good way to chat and get people involved. But design, I find, is important. But it's been interesting this year. A lot of the work and the money that we've earned is because the development shops have been good enough to win some projects. So it goes back and forth. Design, I think, can be an aesthetic beauty that people see and they get excited, and then the development is kind of like the logical thing. Like, actually, you want to build something useful.
Yeah.
Design needs to be good enough to work and make sense and be a good process. So that's we do spend a lot of time on design that may lose us money, but it does, I think, open doors to winning new business sometimes.
Ezekiel has one. I think he's got a opinion on it as well. What do you think about the coalition logo? Do you think it looks out of trend? I'll show it to you again so you can see it.
I've grown used to it. I've known it. I've known about it for years.
Now you know what it is. But
no, I think it's clear to read coalition for sure. I think speech bubbles are over with, though. You could clean it up.
Yeah, that's probably true. I just stuck with it because.
Well, we have that big problem too. Is like you say your name is Coalition Technologies, and people don't really know what you do. I mean, it's so hard in this space. Like, for a long time, we try to be clever and say use all five and say, like, if you go to our site now, it just says like design digital agency, like just as clear as possible. Because
what does use all five mean? Yeah.
That came out of when we graduated. My business partner and I were coming up with ideas, and we really wanted to do experiential marketing, which means I don't know if you've been to like a brand event at a space, right? Like maybe, I don't know, Nike's doing a cool event with basketball players, and there's music going on, there's food going on. We were really into that kind of work, and using all five senses to try to, like, you know, convey an idea or a brand or a company or a vision. But to get that kind of work is actually really, 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 really hard. I have a couple friends that do stuff like that. So yeah, we just call ourselves a design studio. We're actually changing the site right now where it will be just a design and technology studio, because I think that makes a lot more sense.
It looks like you're moving away from the hand too, because you classify the menu.
Actually, if you open it up, I think this is like a iPad view, but you can see it opens up. And we're cleaning all this up just because we put some new projects up. If you scroll down.
Yeah, that's a good question as well, Ezekiel. And I'm open to new designs on the logo. I know Ezekiel was pushing also for a whole redesign of the site, and I've been through that several times. And that's a very long process.
I
so I'm willing to update the logo as long as it matches the site. So if anybody has any designs or things, I'll take it. But, ambitious. We
started doing a redesign, and I realized how much time it was going to take for everybody to do the whole redesign. Yeah. So I just axed it, and then we're changing kind of like some of the top level pages and just little things like that. So if you scroll down, we did a really fun game for Prudential that launched that we just put we just put this up on our site. So this was fun. They let us build a game. We've never built a game before. So if you hit play, you can see kind of what the game is. It's a card game where you have to arrange pretty much these scenarios that are like, you might be bitten by a shark, what are the odds of that? Versus what are the odds of you going to space? So you can see you have to order them by least likely, most likely, and then you get points for that. So we worked so hard to get two-player to work with like Node.js, and there's a whole other, like, you could see the players up top if you were playing somebody, and then they just decided there's not going to be enough people live on the site, so they just killed two-player. And I was so pissed because it was like, two-player looks a lot better too because you have another set of cards moving up top. So yeah, it was this is like some of the projects we do where that kind of blurs the line between product and marketing. I was looking at the stats. You have people on here for the average time on this page or on this game is 12 minutes. The rest of their site is 1 minute. So it's kind of crazy to see that.
Nice, that is very cool. Yeah, and I want to mention as well, Levi's talking about some of the newer frameworks, the front-end frameworks, and we are actually looking into those as well. So people I'd recommend starting to brush up on your skills there, AngularJS and Node.js, and I'm leaning a little bit towards Angular, actually.
Yeah, Angular has been a huge thing to us where everybody started. One of our lead finding guys started learning it. We did Backbone Marionette for a while, and I don't know, it was kind of this company thing. We just all got used to it. And then he learned Angular and kind of sold all the other front-end developers. So that's a good thing. If you're feeling like you guys want to try new technology, I say learn it on the weekend, and then we do presentations, like the developers do a presentation to the other developers and say, we really want to try Angular on the next project. And now all our projects are Angular, and they have that. I guess the best way, it looks more like an app. Like it doesn't have a whole page refresh. Everything's kind of like moving and seamless. This is we brought in a special JavaScript developer to do some of those animations, and he used some really cool stuff. There's GreenSock, which does a lot of animation stuff, and there's another one called Pixie.js that does a lot of like cool special effects animation stuff. So yeah.
Oh, and I guess we have one more question from Ezekiel. We need to hear from other people too. But Ezekiel wonders, what width do you recommend for web design? 960, 1050?
We've had clients now. I mean, sometimes they'll tell us, but the one that we've been using a lot was up to 1400. Thinking about up to 1400, and then another breakpoint. I think it was 1150, 960, and then 640.
With a responsive design.
Yeah, you start to think about those different breakpoints.
It's all the way up to 1400. Though.
I think that was now clients are starting to ask to go a little higher. So.
Is that with the Retina screen? That's
I think it's Retina. I was a little surprised by that. The biggest I've ever seen was like 1280 up until recently. So.
Yeah.
The weird part is just so many different screens you have to support now with web design. It's like annoying.
Yeah. A follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
So when you're in the design phase, will you mock up multiple breakpoints, or will you just do what we do? Is we just mock up one?
Yeah, we need to get better at that too, where we'll move really quickly in a desktop design and then buy ourselves some time, try to get sign off on a general art direction and look and feel, and then kind of think back on mobile first. It's a backwards way a little bit, but I mean, my opinion on the matter is not a lot of people are using mobile web. Well, they are, but you're probably seeing it with search. They're searching for a very specific thing, landing on a page and leaving. They're not sitting on that site all day. They're using maps. So that's my opinion about how important mobile web is. It's important. I mean, Google penalizes you if you don't have a mobile website anymore. But
well, I have a question for you, kind of playing off this as well. What I've noticed is mobile dedicated sites often remove pretty useful or essential functionality from them. And most sites, even the major companies I go to, I'm really frustrated by the mobile experience of their site.
Yeah.
And actually, I would prefer to look at the full site, but on my phone. In some cases, and I know
it depends on the use cases, and they're probably not doing a good job of that in the understanding phase. Is like what's really important, and making a call on almost like every single thing in their entire mobile site. It's tough because supporting some of that stuff in mobile web is very. I mean, there's a bunch of articles out right now about how Apple, especially Apple with Safari, are just not keeping it up to date. Like it's a really kind of backwards browser on the mobile phone. Google's doing a decent job with Chrome, especially with Android, but they almost seem like they're purposely stifling mobile web. I don't know. I'm just putting some shots out there where I think Apple may be doing some stuff to really try to keep people developing apps instead of doing anything on the mobile web. That may be what they're doing, but I'd really like to see more mobile web apps and experiences. But most of the time, crash your phone, so you can't get too cool or you can't do anything too elaborate. Video is like really basic, so it's kind of annoying. But I'd say when we are designing desktop, we have sketches of how that's going to feel when it comes down, so we're not shooting ourselves in the foot.
Right.
A lot of stuff. I think this one really we had to think through on the mobile web because it's cards, and how do you fan out cards when you're in like this view, and so we hold it down, you can kind of see what that card is, and it kind of brings it up. So there was little things we had to think through from mobile side for like this one was probably the hardest mobile site in a while because it's a game.
So for this one, did you have mock-ups for mobile and for desktop?
Yeah, so this one we had time by the client. They let us wireframe and really talk back and forth. They had a UX lead on their side too, which was great. So it was like she fought for us a lot, and ideas we collaborated on. So that's the biggest thing that I say to a lot of our team members is the client may have some bad ideas, but if you collaborate and kind of work together and find kind of a common friend inside their organization, you can actually get a lot of stuff done and actually get some really good work done. But it's tough. So you find a lot of these, especially when you're working with ad agencies, a lot of people are over it. don't even care about the project or the client or whatever.
Well, I have a question that'll be applicable for all these guys in the back as well, for our marketing VPs. But how do you communicate with clients when they have bad ideas or they don't understand things? What are some of the techniques you use that you find most effective?
It goes back to trying to comp those ideas out as quickly as possible and showing the idea that you have. I know that's really, really tough with time, but if you really feel strongly about it, it works. Like Guggenheim, we did a big project for the Guggenheim Museum in New York, and we fought for a really weird idea. Like it was a really weird part of the site, and we really believed strongly in it. And we just fought for it and showed them the different options of what they wanted versus what we wanted, and they eventually gave up. But you kind of have to pick your battles. I mean, we run into the same thing you guys run into, is timelines are quick, clients are sometimes demanding, but you kind of pick your battles. So that was a battle I picked, and then let them have another one that they maybe really strongly believed in. So you kind of not tick for tack, but you kind of like figure that out. And if you feel strongly about it and you have the time, comp it out, show them what you're thinking. This is why, etc. So.
All right.
Yeah, do you consider like budget considerations when you're having to comp out these ideas and fighting for it?
Yeah, too. That's why I was like, I'm not gonna pick every single battle, every single thing. But there's things that we, especially our designers, feel strongly about. When talking to clients, we're like, let's do this. We really want to do this. So, like this game board actually used to be really, 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 really cool. Like I brought in an illustrator to do like a really elaborate, like it looked like Vegas, like an insane elaborate. And they immediately axed it because I think they were scared of kind of gambling implications. But it was a very beautiful interface, and they killed it. I didn't fight back because they're an agency between us and Prudential.
Yeah.
So Prudential was like, this is a legal issue for us. But it sucked because it was really, really beautiful. Actually, I should put it on the site. Just 'cause it was really cool.
Yeah.
This guy was the fast. We brought in an illustrator who was so fast in creating that kind of felt look and really elaborate kind of game board. So it's kind of minimal now, but that's what they wanted.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have another question.
Oh.
But so you were mentioning a lot about like prototyping, and I know that it's been the trend with some ad agencies and whatnot to design with HTML and CSS instead of Photoshop. How do you feel about that? Or like you mentioned some prototype tools that you prefer. So
guys that I would recommend we all check out, and they've been selling the hell out of it. Is an agency called what is it called? Work. Now I can't remember now. It's like it's Work & Co. And if you go to their site, they brag about prototyping everything. They don't do presentations at all. And just work and
working.co.
Yeah. So they're a hot agency right now. I don't know if you guys know Huge. Huge is like one of the biggest digital agencies right now in the world. And a lot of those guys have left to start Work & Co. And their big thing that they did already was they redesigned the whole Virgin America site. So they were the ones that came up with that whole streamlined approach.
Oh my god.
And they said they didn't do any comps, they just prototyped that straight HTML, CSS with the creative director just sitting there telling them what to do. So I think this is definitely applicable to doing that in HTML, CSS, and if you're strong enough to do it, but it depends on how strong your HTML, CSS developers are. Yeah, we have junior ones, we have senior ones. The senior ones know design and probably could do something like this, but we need to have some reference and some ideas on how to do it right.
Because we're working with platforms like BigCommerce, WordPress, and Magento, so how would you approach comping and
that gets tricky.
HTML and CSS from that perspective?
It's almost decoupled, right? You almost have your HTML and CSS separate from the BigCommerce, but then you have to be smart enough to know how far you can push BigCommerce and how far you can push Magento. I know Magento is like super.
Right.
Is what I've heard. We've been lucky enough not to work with it. So.
Well, I think like for like the home pages and stuff, you can really do a lot with HTML and CSS. It's just like the product and category pages you're really frozen.
Yeah. We had we were bidding on a project we didn't win it for. They're actually really close to you guys. I think they're like right here. Called Outer Known. And it's Kelly Slater's new surf company.
Oh yeah, I don't know. And I looked. Their site has been.
It's Magento.
Yeah, it has like not. They haven't done any work on it for like a year.
No, they launched it just recently, but they were bragging about all this cool stuff that they wanted to do with it and had us bidding on it. And then I would go to see them launching it, and I was like, I think Magento caught up to them about how far they could actually take it. It's a Magento site. They spent a ton of money on it. I I think they kind of realized how hard it was to do like cool stuff with it. So
Yeah, it's not really interactive at all.
no, it's just really simple,
That's
and
so
it's just
funny.
almost a blog and just brought it.
Yeah. Oh my
And then on top of that, all the surfers are mad because like every shirt's like $100. So, they're getting a lot of flack for it. So. But
All right.
yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming in today, Levi.
Have a good
Appreciate it.
rest of your week. It's almost Friday, so
Yeah.
it's all downhill slide from here.
Thanks for hitting that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
What prototype
Yeah.
software do you recommend?
Oh, so